You call this justice? You're a joke, Your Honor.
Ms. Dawson, you are out of line. Control yourself.
Or what? You'll find me in contempt?
She thought money could buy everything, even justice. A wealthy entrepreneur named Vanessa Kingsley walked into Providence Municipal Court wearing confidence like armor and arrogance like perfume. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, announcing her presence long before she spoke. She wasn't there to apologize. She wasn't even there to listen. She was there to prove that rules were suggestions for other people, not for her. But Judge Frank Caprio had already seen something in the officer's report that would turn her smirk into silence. I am Frederick, and I've spent years studying courtroom moments where entitlement collides with accountability. What fascinated me about this case wasn't just the violation itself, it was watching someone learn that respect can't be purchased. When the case was called, Vanessa barely looked up from her phone. The clerk read her violation, 27 miles over the limit in a residential zone, the kind of speed that could end a life. The officer's note added something unusual. Driver refused to cooperate, claimed to know people in high places. The courtroom murmured, but Judge Caprio's face didn't change. He'd seen pride before, but there was something different in her, a calm superiority that dared him to challenge her. He greeted her evenly. She smiled without warmth and said she was running late for a board meeting, asking to make it quick. And just like that, the tone was set, a collision course between entitlement and accountability about to unfold before a live audience. If you've ever wished the powerful could finally be held accountable, hit that like button. What happened next speaks to anyone who believes justice should treat everyone the same. What Vanessa didn't know was that this wasn't just about speeding. Hidden in the officer's report was something she didn't expect anyone to mention, something she thought had been forgotten. But Judge Caprio had read it, and before this hearing was over, her entire image, her brand, her confidence, her mask would begin to crumble in front of everyone. It was a Wednesday morning at 10. Sunlight slanted through the high courtroom windows, illuminating the seal of justice behind the bench. It was supposed to be an ordinary day. Dozens of minor traffic cases, the usual apologies, the routine warnings. But the moment Vanessa Kingsley entered, the energy shifted. Courtroom staff exchanged quiet glances. Even the bailiff leaned toward the judge and whispered that this one might be difficult. Vanessa didn't walk, she arrived. Designer sunglasses perched on her head, a silk blazer worth more than most cars in the parking lot, and a phone she couldn't seem to put down. Every step radiated dismissal, as if the air itself owed her space. She glanced at the rows of ordinary people waiting for their cases, the single mothers, delivery drivers, retired veterans, and smirked. To her, they were the background to her inconvenience. Judge Caprio adjusted his glasses, reading the officer's report aloud. Citation, 57 miles per hour in a 30 zone. Residential area. Defendant reportedly argumentative, refused to sign the citation, stated she had important places to be. His tone was calm, but each word was deliberate, measured, like a scale slowly weighing character. He asked her to step forward. She didn't move. She said she had investors waiting and asked if they could make it quick. The courtroom rustled with uneasy laughter. Everyone could feel the tension between her arrogance and the judge's quiet authority. Caprio leaned forward slightly, eyes never leaving her face. He told her that in his courtroom, everyone waits their turn, including her. She sighed, tossed her phone into her bag with theatrical annoyance, and walked up to the stand. Fine, she said. She was speeding. Let's just pay it and move on. She really didn't see why this was such a big deal. Her words hung in the air, sharp and careless. The people in the gallery, the kind who worked 2 jobs to pay for a single mistake, looked at her with a mix of disbelief and anger. Judge Caprio turned to the bailiff and asked if anyone had been injured. The officer replied that no one was hurt, just reckless driving through a school zone. A school zone. The words echoed. The mothers in the back row exchanged looks. The young man who just apologized for being 10 miles over the limit lowered his head, almost ashamed for her. Vanessa rolled her eyes. It was early, she said. No kids were even outside. Caprio's voice grew slightly firmer. The law doesn't wait for tragedy before it matters. I've seen this pattern before. People who confuse success with exemption. It's a dangerous belief, and it usually takes a moment like this to break it. The atmosphere in the room shifted again, the weight of moral gravity pressing in. For the first time, Vanessa's expression flickered. Not guilt, not yet, but irritation, the kind that hides discomfort. As the proceedings continued, Judge Caprio's calm patience began to feel like quiet thunder. He wasn't raising his voice. He didn't need to. Every question peeled back another layer of entitlement. Every answer she gave tightened the invisible rope she was wrapping around herself. By now, the audience wasn't watching a speeding case. They were watching a test of values, humility versus hubris. And what no one knew, not even Vanessa, was that the next few minutes would uncover something from her record that she'd hoped was buried. The judge closed the file and looked directly at her. He asked her a question that lingered in the air, not just for her, but for everyone watching. Why is it that people with the most tend to show the least respect for those who serve the law? The silence after his question hung heavy, but Vanessa wasn't one to feel the weight of reflection. Instead, she gave a light laugh, the kind meant to dismiss, not respond. Respect, she said, shaking her head. She respected people who earned it. She didn't need to be lectured for driving a little fast. The courtroom shifted uncomfortably. You could hear the shuffle of papers, the faint buzz of the ceiling lights, and the unspoken disbelief of everyone present. Judge Caprio folded his hands, patient as ever. He told her this wasn't about how much she drove or how fast she lived. It was about how she treated others, including his court. But Vanessa wasn't listening. She was already unlocking her phone again, scrolling as if the judge's words were background noise. She apologized, said she had actual business to handle, and suggested they wrap things up. The bailiff took a half step forward, but Caprio simply raised his hand. He told her to put the phone down. His voice didn't need volume. It carried the gravity of a man who'd spent decades commanding respect without demanding it. Vanessa sighed dramatically and placed her phone face down on the stand. "Fine," she said. "Happy now?" "Not particularly," Caprio replied calmly. He reminded her she was driving 57 in a 30 and asked if she understood how dangerous that was. She said she understood that she was a skilled driver. Maybe the laws should make sense for people who actually know how to drive. The audience murmured again, this time louder, a ripple of disbelief spreading across the benches. Even the bailiff's jaw tightened. But Judge Caprio stayed still, eyes steady, voice patient. He explained that the speed limit isn't based on her opinion. It's based on the safety of others, including children in that neighborhood. "Oh, please," she interrupted, waving a hand dismissively. "Parents should teach their kids not to run near the road. Why is that suddenly my problem?" The air in the courtroom changed. Shock turned into quiet anger. One woman in the back, a teacher maybe, muttered that it was unbelievable. Caprio's face hardened slightly, but he didn't break. He told her slowly that's not how community works. The rules protect everyone, including her. Her smirk returned. "Look," she said, "she didn't hit anyone. Nobody got hurt, so can she pay her fine and leave?" He looked down at her record, flipping the pages. She'd had 3 prior speeding citations in the last 18 months. Vanessa's eyebrows arched. "So, she paid them. Isn't that the point?" "The point," Caprio replied, "is that paying fines doesn't erase responsibility. It doesn't teach the meaning of law or humility." That word humility seemed to strike something in her, but she masked it quickly with sarcasm. "Humility? Are we seriously moralizing over a traffic ticket now?" Caprio leaned forward slightly. "No," he said. They were confronting the attitude behind it, because arrogance on the road is just arrogance in motion. For the first time, the courtroom didn't laugh or whisper. They just listened. Even Vanessa's expression shifted, though she quickly straightened and crossed her arms. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "You're trying to make an example out of me." Caprio's eyes didn't waver. "Maybe," he said, "or maybe life's been trying to do that for you, and you keep ignoring it." Her lips parted, ready to bite back, but nothing came out. A flicker of confusion crossed her face, quickly replaced by defiance. She said she didn't have time for this and asked if they could finish. Judge Caprio paused, then nodded to the bailiff. "Not yet." He turned back to her and said that before he made a ruling, there was something he wanted to confirm, something that might explain why this ticket matters more than she thinks. Vanessa frowned. "What do you mean?" Caprio lifted a separate document from her file, one she didn't seem to recognize. Her confidence faltered, just slightly. "This isn't the first time your driving put someone in danger," he said quietly. "You were issued a warning last year for nearly hitting a crossing guard outside St. Mary's Elementary. Do you remember that?" The courtroom gasped. Vanessa blinked, lips parting, words lost in the sudden spotlight of truth. and for the first time, her silence spoke louder than her arrogance ever could. The name St. Mary's Elementary seemed to echo inside the courtroom. Vanessa's polished calm cracked just slightly as she blinked toward the judge. "That was nothing," she said quickly. "No one was hurt. It was exaggerated." Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair. "You nearly struck a crossing guard," he said. "A person trying to protect children. You didn't think that was worth mentioning," Vanessa scoffed. "Because it wasn't her fault. The woman jumped out too soon. Everyone blew it out of proportion, and she paid the fine." "Paid the fine," Caprio repeated softly. "Always the same words with you." His tone had changed, not angry, but deeply disappointed. "Paying doesn't erase the danger you cause. You can't buy away accountability." Vanessa straightened her shoulders. "With respect, Your Honor, she built 3 companies from scratch. She'd worked her entire life to be where she was. She wasn't some reckless teenager. She was a responsible adult who happened to be in a hurry." The judge's eyes hardened. "And your success gives you the right to put others at risk." She laughed, loud, defensive, brittle. "Oh, come on. You think a few extra miles per hour turns me into a villain? This whole system is designed to milk money from people like me, the ones who actually contribute to society. What do you think? Does wealth excuse reckless behavior? Drop your thoughts in the comments." Gasps filled the room. The mother in the back row clenched her purse. The bailiff looked to the judge, waiting, but Caprio didn't raise his voice. Instead, he set his pen down carefully, folding his hands. He told her slowly that this system she was mocking is what keeps those children alive to go to school every morning. She smirked, but her voice wavered. "You can moralize all you want. I'm not afraid of fines. I'll pay whatever you want." The judge leaned forward, his calm becoming a weapon sharper than anger. "I'm not interested in your money." The words hit her like a slap. The room went dead silent. He continued, voice low but cutting through the tension like a blade. "What concerns me is the belief that wealth exempts you from empathy, that somehow your success grants you permission to disrespect those who serve the law and endanger those who depend on it." Vanessa's smirk finally faded. "You're twisting this. You don't know me." Caprio didn't flinch. "I don't need to. Your behavior in this courtroom tells me everything I need to know." She picked up her phone again, clutching it like armor. "Are we done here? I've wasted enough time." "Put the phone down," the judge said. His tone was final. "If you walk out of this courtroom, you will be held in contempt." The room froze. Vanessa's face flushed red. Contempt? For what? For showing complete disregard for this court, its rules, and the safety of others. His voice was steady, unshaken. "You don't get to buy respect here. You earn it, or you lose it." She hesitated at the door, eyes darting from the bailiff to the audience. For the first time, doubt flickered across her face. Caprio turned slightly to the bailiff and asked him to make sure Miss Kingsley remained seated. "Yes, Your Honor." As the bailiff took a single step forward, Vanessa's confidence finally cracked. She lowered herself back into the chair, trembling with frustration she couldn't hide. Caprio nodded, quietly reclaiming the rhythm of the room. "Now that we have your attention," he said, "let's talk about consequences." The gavel hadn't fallen yet, but everyone could feel it coming. The courtroom felt like it had stopped breathing. Vanessa's silence was no longer pride, it was panic disguised as poise. The same woman who had strutted in like a queen now stood cornered, her confidence slipping through her fingers. Judge Caprio looked at her steadily, the calm center of a storm she didn't see coming. He told her she came in expecting to pay her way out, but the law doesn't sell indulgences, it offers lessons if you're willing to learn them. She laughed once, brittle and hollow. "A lecture? Is that what I'm paying for?" Caprio didn't blink. "No, you're paying for your choices. But the lesson, that's free." Unfortunately, not everyone values what they don't have to buy. A ripple of quiet laughter spread through the gallery, not mockery but release. People could feel the tide turning. The woman who had dismissed them was now facing something she couldn't outspend. He continued, opening her file again. She'd had 4 moving violations in 2 years. Each time, she paid without reflection. Each time, she believed that was the end of it. But every payment was just another wall between her and accountability. "I said I'd pay this one too," she snapped, folding her arms. "Let's just get it over with." "No," Caprio said firmly. "That's the problem. You treat responsibility like a transaction. You can't swipe a card and erase your behavior." He paused. "Your fine for this violation was $400. I'm raising it to $750 plus court costs." But that's not all. Her head jerked up. You can't just, I can, and I am, he interrupted. I'm also assigning you to a mandatory driver responsibility course within 30 days. Failure to complete it will result in suspension of your license. She blinked rapidly. You're overstepping. No, Miss Kingsley, Caprio said, his tone colder now. I'm holding you accountable. The courtroom was still, no sound except her breathing, quick, shallow, trapped between rage and humiliation. You call this justice? She finally asked, voice trembling. Caprio nodded slowly. Exactly that. Because justice isn't supposed to make you comfortable. It's supposed to make you confront yourself. Something shifted in her eyes. Not understanding, not yet, but the first trace of vulnerability. For the first time, she wasn't performing. She was absorbing. Then Caprio leaned back, his words softer now, almost compassionate. You think power comes from money, Miss Kingsley, but real power comes from restraint, from knowing when to stop before you hurt someone. That's the power you lack, and the one this court intends to teach you. Her lips parted, but no defense came, just silence. The audience could sense it, the moment when arrogance cracked enough for truth to slip in. He lifted his gavel, but didn't bring it down yet. I hope you understand that what's happening here isn't punishment. It's a reminder that laws exist because lives matter. Vanessa looked down for the first time since the hearing began. The marble floor beneath her expensive shoes suddenly looked very small and very real. For the first time, Vanessa wasn't standing above anyone. She was standing alone. The courtroom that once felt beneath her now felt like the only place left to face herself. Judge Caprio didn't speak for a moment. He let the silence do what money never could, make her listen. He finally told her she'd spent this entire hearing proving that she knew how to build an empire, but she hadn't shown that she knew how to be part of a community. Vanessa blinked, trying to swallow the lump rising in her throat. A community, she echoed, as if the word was foreign. Yes, Caprio said softly. The people who obey the same laws you break. The people whose taxes maintain the roads you speed through. The parents whose children you endangered when you decided your schedule mattered more than their safety. Every word landed heavy but calm, not meant to humiliate but to awaken. She looked down. I didn't mean to disrespect anyone. You didn't have to mean it, Caprio replied. Disrespect doesn't need intention. It needs indifference. And that's what you've shown. Indifference to rules, to safety, to people. Her voice cracked. I just wanted to move on with my day. Caprio nodded slowly, and so does everyone else who comes in here. But they face consequences without arrogance. They stand where you stand, and they own their mistakes. They don't hide behind status. Something inside her finally broke. The sharpness drained from her tone. I suppose I just assumed this was like every other ticket. It isn't, he said firmly. This one came with a mirror, and when people like you look into it, they often see the one thing they can't buy, humility. A ripple of emotion swept through the audience. The same people she once looked down on now looked at her not with contempt, but quiet empathy. They'd all been humbled by life at some point, and now it was her turn. Caprio leaned forward, his voice steady and human. Miss Kingsley, I don't dislike you. I dislike what entitlement does to people. It builds walls so high that you stop seeing others. But the truth is, every wall eventually cracks, and sometimes a courtroom is where that happens. Vanessa's eyes glistened. She tried to speak, but her words trembled. I understand. Caprio nodded gently. Good, because understanding is the first step toward change. He closed her file with a quiet thud, not as judgment, but as closure. Your fine stands. Your driver course stands. But what happens after today depends on whether this moment means something to you. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. It does. Caprio studied her for a moment, then gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. Then maybe this wasn't a punishment after all. The tension that had hung over the courtroom for nearly an hour began to ease. Vanessa took a slow breath, not the shallow kind of impatience, but the deep kind that comes from surrender. She didn't walk out a winner. She walked out a human being who had finally been reminded what that meant. And for everyone watching, inside that courtroom and beyond, it was clear that something far more important than a verdict had just taken place. If you believe respect is something earned, not bought, subscribe. Because stories like this remind us that accountability doesn't care about your bank account. When Vanessa finally stepped away from the bench, something was different. Her stride, once loud and commanding, had softened. The sound of her heels no longer echoed through the courtroom like defiance. It faded like reflection. The people who had watched her unravel weren't cheering or mocking. They were quiet, thoughtful, almost reverent, because they'd just witnessed something money couldn't buy. Transformation. Judge Caprio remained seated, watching her sign the paperwork with steady hands that trembled just enough to reveal her humanity. "Miss Kingsley," he said gently, "you may pay your fine now." She nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." And before you go, he added, "Remember what I told you. This courtroom doesn't measure success in dollars. It measures it in character." Her eyes lifted. "I understand." He smiled, that small patient smile that had humbled thousands before her. Then, maybe today wasn't about punishment. Maybe it was about a restart. As she turned toward the exit, no arrogance remained, no superiority, only the faint look of a woman realizing that humility isn't weakness, it's wisdom rediscovered. The doors closed behind her, and with them, the lesson remained. In a world where people mistake wealth for worth, Judge Caprio reminded everyone present that real justice doesn't need to shout. It simply stands firm. Vanessa Kingsley walked in rich, but she walked out richer, not in money, but in truth. Because sometimes the most valuable thing a courtroom can give isn't a fine. It's a mirror. When you rise high enough to look down on others, remember, respect is what keeps you from falling.